The distress signal had been reverberating through subspace for exactly 14 hours and 23 minutes when Commander Vral'tek finally received clearance to investigate. 14 hours. In combat terms, that was an eternity. Everyone understood the grim meaning of silence following a distress call. You would arrive, document the casualties, file the reports, and strive not to dwell on it too much. Approaching the Havlock Station perimeter now, his navigator Krill announced. Her three-fingered hands danced across the console with a nervous energy, betraying her awareness of the perilous situation they were entering. Debris field detected. Multiple ship signatures, all inert. Vral'tek's mandibles involuntarily clicked together. Havlock Station was a joint military outpost, housing 87 personnel from 6 distinct species, all tasked with monitoring the border regions near Keltharan space. The Keltharans were not renowned for their diplomatic finesse. They were, however, infamous for deploying overwhelming force and reducing everything in their path to its constituent atoms. "Life signs?" Vral'tek queried, though he already had a chilling suspicion of the answer. Krill's sensor sweep took longer than it should have, a worrying sign. Swift detection of casualties typically meant they were still largely intact. A delay, however. "I'm detecting something," Krill said slowly. "But it doesn't make sense. One life sign. Human. Heart rate elevated but stable. Located in what used to be the station's main defensive hub." Vral'tek felt a familiar weight of dread settle into his primary stomach. One survivor. That implied 86 fatalities. It meant someone had endured the unimaginable horrors that unfolded here, likely in shock, possibly injured, and undoubtedly traumatized. "Any Keltharan signatures?" "Negative, but Commander, you need to see this debris analysis." Vral'tek pulled up the data on his personal screen and immediately regretted it. 32 Keltharan warships, not scouts, not patrol boats, but full battle cruisers. The debris field contained enough atomized Keltharan combat vessels to constitute an entire assault fleet. And one human was still alive. "Get me a visual on the station," Vral'tek ordered, simultaneously alerting the medical team. "Whatever we're about to find, it won't be pleasant." The main view screen flickered to life, and Vral'tek had to suppress an urge to make a religious gesture. He wasn't particularly religious, but sometimes the universe revealed things that prompted one to reassess their skepticism. Havlock Station appeared as if something colossal had taken a bite out of it. Entire sections were simply gone, vaporized by weapon fire. The hull was scarred with the distinctive burn patterns of Keltharan plasma cannons. Atmosphere was venting from at least 40 different breaches. Yet, somehow, the central defensive hub remained relatively intact. "Hailing the survivor," Krill announced. "Audio only. Visual feeds are down." Static crackled across the bridge speakers, followed by a sound that caused every member of Vral'tek's crew to freeze. Someone was humming. Not screaming, not crying, not pleading for rescue. Humming. A jaunty human tune that, given the circumstances, sounded utterly deranged. "Havlock Station, this is the rescue vessel Morning's Edge. Please identify yourself." The humming ceased. There was a wet cough. Then a voice, rough and completely devoid of any normal human emotion. "Oh, good. You guys took your sweet time, didn't you? I've been sitting here for what, half a day? Do you have any idea how boring it gets when everyone's dead?" Vral'tek exchanged glances with Krill. She looked as unsettled as he felt. "Please identify yourself and your condition. We're preparing to dock and extract you." "My condition? Well, let's see. I'm tired. I'm out of coffee, And I'm pretty sure I broke 3 ribs during our little skirmish. Oh, and I'm covered in blood. But don't worry, most of it isn't mine. Name's Kade. Corporal Kade Mercer. Human Marines. Serial number? You know what? Who cares about serial numbers right now? Vral'tek felt his secondary heart skip a beat. The human sounded coherent, sarcastic even. That was somehow more disturbing than screaming. Corporal Mercer, what transpired here? Our sensors indicate a massive Keltharan presence, but we're not detecting any live hostiles. There was a pause, then something that might have been a laugh, except it sounded like someone had forgotten how to laugh and was attempting it from memory. Massive presence? Oh, buddy, that's understating it. They came in with everything. 32 cruisers, full boarding parties, the works. Really thought they were going to make a statement, you know, wipe out the station, send a message. All that tedious villain nonsense. And the station personnel? Another pause, this one longer. When Kade spoke again, the sarcasm had drained from his voice, replaced by something flat and cold. Dead, all of them. First wave caught us completely off guard. Keltharans breached sections 4 through 9 simultaneously. We lost 40 people in the first 10 minutes. Commander Yaltos organized a fighting retreat to the central hub. We made it. Most of us. 60 of us total. 6 different species, all trying to figure out how to hold off an army with the weapons we had on hand. Vral'tek listened, his tactical mind already assembling the horrifying scenario. 60 defenders against thousands of Keltharan shock troops. It should have been a massacre. It had been a massacre. The Keltharans have adaptive shielding, Vral'tek said carefully, and regenerative armor. How did you hold them off? We didn't. They swept through the outer defenses like we weren't even there. Killed another 30 of us in the next 20 minutes. Then they hit the central hub with everything they had. Plasma charges, kinetic rounds, sonic disruptors, the works. We lost 18 more in the initial assault. The math was adding up in Vral'tek's head, and he didn't like where it was going. That leaves 12 defenders. 10, actually. 2 more died when the Keltans breached the inner door. Some kind of energy weapon I'd never seen before. Just poof, gone. Didn't even leave ash. And the other 9? Silence. Corporal Mercer, what happened to the others? They died defending this room. Every single one of them. Fought like absolute legends. Yaltos took down 6 Keltharans before they finally put enough holes in him to stop him. Science Officer Trailer, this little Vaxian who looked like she couldn't hurt a fly, she jerry-rigged a plasma grenade from a damaged conduit and took out an entire squad. They all died fighting. Vral'tek's tactical officer, a grizzled Corran named Vrel, leaned forward. And you survived. Oh no, I didn't survive. Kade's voice had that chillingly jovial quality again, though there was nothing amusing about it. I explain. See, here's the thing about humans that I don't think the Keltharans understood. We're really, really good at holding grudges. And when you kill everyone we care about, when you murder our friends right in front of us, something happens. Something clicks off in our brains. The part that says, hey, maybe you should retreat. Maybe you should surrender. Maybe you should value your own life. That part just stops working. Krill's hands had ceased their movements on her console. She was staring at the audio feed display as if it might physically harm her. What did you do? Vral'tek pressed. I killed them, every single one. The Keltharans thought they'd won when the last of my friends went down. They were celebrating, actually celebrating. When I stood up from behind Yaltos's body, there were maybe 40 of them left in the room. Their commander, this smug piece of work with about 16 decorations on his armor. He actually laughed at me, asked if I wanted to beg for my life. Did you? No. I told him I was going to kill him with his own weapon. He thought that was hilarious. Right up until I ripped the plasma rifle out of his hands and caved in his skull with it. The bridge of the Morning's Edge had fallen into an absolute hush. Even the normal background hum of the ship's systems seemed to have quieted, as if the vessel itself were listening. The rest tried to kill me, obviously, but here's what they didn't count on. Human adrenal response. You know about that? I've read the files, Vral'tek said quietly. The files don't do it justice. When a human hits that state, that pure fight-or-die response, we stop feeling pain. We stop getting tired. We just become this thing that won't stop until everything trying to kill us is dead. I killed the first 10 with their commander's rifle. Then the weapon overheated, and I switched to a Keltharan combat blade I pulled out of Yaltos's chest. Killed another 15 with that. 15 with a blade? They were wearing armor. I had to get creative. Joints, mostly. Anywhere the plating didn't quite connect. You'd be surprised how much force an enraged human can generate. I snapped necks, crushed windpipes. One guy, I literally beat him to death with his own severed arm. I'm not proud of that one, but efficiency wasn't really my top priority at the time. Vral'tek found himself unable to respond. The tactical part of his brain was attempting to process the logistics of a single individual killing 15 armored soldiers in close combat, and failing to find a scenario where it made sense. The remaining 15 ran, Kade continued. Actually turned and ran. Can you believe that? Elite Keltharan shock troops running from one human. They made it about 30 meters before I caught up. Used a damaged conduit as an improvised electrified club. Turns out Keltharan nervous systems don't handle high-voltage shocks very well. Who knew? That accounts for 40 hostiles in the hub, Vrel said, his voice carefully neutral. Our scans showed 32 destroyed cruisers, thousands of Keltharans. Oh, you want to know about the rest? That's where it gets fun. See, the Keltharans had left skeleton crews on their ships. Figured the ground forces had everything under control. They were wrong. I found a working shuttle in the lower bay. Damaged, but functional. Flew it out into the debris field. You, acting alone in a shuttle, engaged 32 enemy warships. Not quite. I mean, the shuttle itself wasn't much use, but Havlock Station concealed a vital secret. Station Commander Yaltos shared this with me shortly before his demise. It was an emergency protocol. If the station was ever irretrievably breached, a failsafe would activate. A series of antimatter charges strategically placed to keep the enemy from salvaging our technology or turning the station against us. Vral'tek felt a chill run down his spine. You detonated the station's self-destruct mechanism while enemy vessels were nearby. Guilty as charged, Kade responded. The Keltharans had their entire fleet neatly arranged around the station. Tactical efficiency, I suppose, making boarding operations simpler. It also made them perfectly vulnerable targets when I triggered the charges. The station erupted like a miniature sun. 18 cruisers were obliterated in the initial explosion, and the remaining 14, they tried to flee. I commend them for their instinct to retreat, but it was unfortunate for them that my resolve was, well, exceptionally strong. The shuttle possessed a single operational torpedo launcher, with just one torpedo. However, the explosion had scattered a vast field of debris, and I had dedicated 3 years to studying Keltharan shield frequencies. I pinpointed their resonant weakness during my academy days. Never imagined I'd actually employ it. You incapacitated 14 battle cruisers with a solitary torpedo? Don't be absurd. I disabled one battlecruiser with one torpedo. It struck precisely at the reactor core, initiating a chain reaction that ignited their antimatter reserves. That blast subsequently destroyed 3 more vessels. The remaining 10 attempted to disperse, but the debris field wreaked havoc on their navigation systems. 2 collided while trying to evade the explosion. 3 more were torn apart by debris impacts as their shields failed. The final 5 managed to travel roughly 0.3 light-years before their engines failed. Prolonged exposure to antimatter shock waves, it turns out, is detrimental to a ship's integrity. They're adrift out there now, inert. Their crews suffocated when life support failed. A profound silence settled on the bridge. Vral'tek attempted to speak, but found himself speechless. How does one react to such a revelation? How does one process the fact that a single individual had just recounted the elimination of an entire assault fleet through a blend of fury, ingenuity, and an apparently terrifying refusal to perish? So, yes. Kade finally broke the silence. That's what transpired. Everyone's gone but me. I won. Can you guys expedite the rescue? I desperately need a shower and about a week of uninterrupted sleep. Vral'tek finally regained his voice. Corporal Mercer, we are docking now. A medical team is awaiting your arrival. Excellent. Oh, and Commander, a heads up. The central hub is, well, it's quite a mess. A really significant mess. You might want to prepare your personnel. It's not a pretty sight. Understood. We'll be there in 5 minutes. The audio feed disconnected. Detective Safed remained in his command chair, gazing at the ruined station on his view screen, attempting to reconcile the narrative he had just heard with reality. Beside him, a krill appeared unusually pale, which was a remarkable feat for a being with green skin. "Sir," she said softly, "what do we report to command about this?" Vral'tek pondered. He considered the report he would have to submit. He considered trying to explain how a lone human had miraculously survived an seemingly impossible situation, and transformed it into the most crushing defeat the Keltharan civilian military had endured in half a century. "We tell them the truth," he declared at last, "and then we allow the humans to manage the aftermath. Because I have a strong feeling this will alter everything." The Morning's Edge concluded its docking procedure with a level of meticulous precision that suggested deep discomfort among all involved. As Vral'tek prepared to enter the station with his security detail, he found himself contemplating what kind of person could perform the actions Kade had described and still maintain such sarcasm. He was about to discover. The airlock hissed open with a sound that reminded Vral'tek of a tomb unsealing, a comparison that felt unsettlingly apt given the circumstances. He had brought 6 security personnel, all armed and equipped with full environmental suits. This wasn't because he anticipated hostility from Corporal Mercer, but because the atmospheric readings from Havlock Station indicated that certain sections were leaking approximately 17 different toxic substances into the air. Medical Officer Tillis, a Vexian with around 40 years of combat triage experience, had insisted on joining them despite Vral'tek's objections. She had looked at him with her enormous compound eyes and stated simply that if a human had endured what the report suggested, she needed to witness it firsthand, or she would never believe it. Fair enough. The corridor beyond the airlock resembled a scene from a nightmare, the kind nightmares themselves might have to induce fear. The walls were scorched black from plasma fire. Impact craters scarred every surface, some so deep that Vral'tek could see the underlying support structure. And the bodies. Oh, the bodies. Keltharans were imposing creatures, easily 7 feet tall, built as if designed specifically for warfare. and they had succeeded beyond all reasonable expectations. Their armor could withstand most small arms fire and regenerate from anything short of a direct antimatter strike. "The ones in this corridor are in pieces, by the ancestors," whispered Jaw, one of Vral'tek's security team. The young Corran looked as though he might be sick inside his helmet, an outcome that would be deeply unpleasant for everyone. Vral'tek couldn't fault him. The Keltharan corpses weren't merely deceased, they had been annihilated, with a thoroughness that implied whoever had killed them was working through some profound psychological issues at the time. Limbs were severed, armor was crumpled like paper. One corpse appeared to have its own weapon rammed through its faceplate, with enough force to embed it in the wall behind. "Keep moving," Vral'tek commanded, trying to maintain a steady voice. "And someone begin documenting this. Command will demand evidence." They advanced down the corridor, carefully navigating around the carnage. The deeper they ventured into the station, the more gruesome it became. One room had clearly served as some kind of checkpoint. 15 dead Keltharans, all killed in what seemed to be under 30 seconds, based on the positions of the bodies. The walls were splattered with biomatter. "This is insane," Tillis murmured. "One person did this. One person." "Humans have adrenaline," Vral'tek offered, though even he sounded unconvincing. "It enhances their physical capabilities during extreme stress." "Commander, I've treated humans before. Adrenaline makes them stronger, faster, more resistant to pain. It doesn't transform them into walking apocalypses. This is something entirely different." They reached the central hub 15 minutes after boarding. The door was half melted, hanging at an angle that suggested something very large and very violent had either tried to force its way through or out. Vral'tek wasn't entirely sure which scenario was more disturbing. "Corporal Mercer," he called out, "we're entering the hub now." "Doors unlocked," came the reply. "Watch your step, it's slippery." Slippery was an understatement. The floor of the central hub was covered in approximately 3 inches of mixed biological fluids from at least 4 different species. The stench, even through the environmental suit's filters, was enough to make Vral'tek's stomach churn. And there, perched on what appeared to be an overturned weapons locker, sat Corporal Kade Mercer. The human looked exactly like someone who had just spent the last 14 hours fighting a war by himself. His armor, standard-issue human marine gear, was so damaged that Vral'tek couldn't identify its original color. It might have been gray. It might have been blue. Currently, it was red and black, with burn marks and what looked like claw gouges across the chest plate. Kay himself looked worse. His face was covered in cuts and bruises. One eye was swollen nearly shut. A field dressing wrapped around his left arm was soaked through with blood, and he was missing 2 fingers on his right hand, just cauterized stumps where his ring and pinky fingers should have been. He was also eating something from a ration pack with his remaining fingers, appearing as unconcerned with the situation as someone enjoying lunch in a park. "Hey," Kay said, around a mouthful of whatever passed for food in human military rations. "You guys made good time. Traffic must have been light." Vral'tek found himself staring. The human's vitals, according to his suit scanner, were utterly wrong. His heart rate was elevated, but stable. Blood pressure was too low, suggesting significant blood loss. Body temperature was a full degree below human normal. And yet, Kale was sitting there, eating a ration bar, cracking jokes as if he hadn't just described committing genocide against an entire assault fleet. "Corporal, you require immediate medical attention," Tillis stated, moving forward with her medical scanner active. "Yeah, probably," Kay agreed. "But I'm going to finish this protein bar first. Do you have any idea how long it's been since I ate? I'm starving." Apparently, murdering several thousand hostiles burns a lot of calories. Who knew? Tillis began scanning him, her movements quick and efficient. Girl watched her face cycle through about 6 different expressions, none of them good. "How are you even conscious?" she finally asked. "Your blood volume is down by nearly 30%. You have 3 broken ribs, a fractured collarbone, a concussion, and what appears to be a partially collapsed lung. And is that a Keltharan blade fragment embedded in your shoulder?" Kade glanced down at his shoulder as if he had forgotten about it. "Oh yeah, that happened around hour 9. Couldn't get it out without probably doing more damage, so I just left it. Hasn't killed me yet." "It's 3 inches from your subclavian artery." It hadn't killed him yet. Vral'tek stepped over what appeared to be the decapitated body of a Keltharan officer, choosing not to inquire about its absence. "Corporal Mercer," he began, "I need to ask you some questions for my report. Are you able to answer?" Kade finished his protein bar, tossing the wrapper onto a heap of debris. "Sure, fire away. No pun intended, considering everything's been ablaze here at some point." "Walk me through the final assault. After the Keltharans breached the hub, what happened?" Kale leaned against the wall, wincing. "Do you want the strategic breakdown or the emotionally traumatic version?" "Tactical, if you please." "Right. So, as I mentioned, the Kale Figrants hit us hard. The initial wave comprised around 60 troops. We were down to 10 defenders. Commander Yelidus, a formidable Corrin with an impressive beard, organized us into a defensive formation. 3 firing positions with overlapping fields of fire. Standard procedure." Vral'tek nodded, recognizing it as his own likely course of action. "It worked for about 5 minutes. The Keltharans adapted quickly. They're good at that. They began using suppression fire and flanking maneuvers, picking us off one by one. Yaltos fell fighting, taking a plasma burst to the chest while trying to shield Science Officer Trell. She died about 30 seconds later from a grenade, sacrificing herself to save the rest of us. Kade's flat, unemotional delivery was more chilling than if he had wept. That left 8, then 6, then 3, then just me. I was behind an overturned table, which, by the way, is a terrible defensive position, with precisely 1 functional weapon and maybe 30 rounds left. 40 Keltharans stood between me and the door. Statistically, I was extremely dead. But you weren't. No, because I stopped thinking about statistics and started thinking about revenge. See, what I think other species don't grasp about humans is that we're quite bad at math when we're enraged. All those calculations about odds and survival probability simply vanish when someone kills everyone we care about. Kale stood, swaying slightly. Tillis reached for him, but he waved her off. "I'm fine. Anyway, the Keltharan commander, the one with all the fancy medals, made a mistake. He got arrogant. He swaggered right up to my position, wanting to gloat, wanting me to see his face as he killed me. A dramatic, villainous moment. Probably would have looked great in a report." "What did you do?" "I plunged my knife through his eye socket, grabbed his rifle as he died, and shot the 3 nearest to him. Then I used his body as a shield, firing until the rifle was empty. I killed 12 before they even realized what was happening." Rail glanced at the headless body by the doorway, noting the ornate armor. "The rest tried to rush me. Big mistake. In close quarters, they couldn't use their heavy weapons without risking friendly fire. I had a Kelar combat blade, and absolutely nothing to lose. You'd be astonished what you can accomplish with a sharp object and a complete disregard for your own safety. You killed 28 trained soldiers in hand-to-hand combat? 25. Three of them dispatched each other in the confusion. Friendly fire is friendly, right? Kale laughed, a sound that made everyone in the room instinctively recoil. Tillis, finishing her scan, began applying emergency medical patches and administering a broad-spectrum painkiller and blood coagulant. You need surgery, multiple surgeries, possibly therapy. Definitely therapy. Agreed, Kale conceded. But later, Commander. You wanted to know about the ships, correct? Vral'tek nodded, unable to speak. After I secured the hub, I was in what you might call an altered state. Fight or flight response at about 11. Except there was nothing left to fight. Everyone was dead. My team, the station personnel, all the boarders, just me, and about 300 corpses. He paused, and for the first time, a glimmer of genuine emotion crossed his face. I should have just waited for rescue. Tactically, strategically, I know that was the smart move. But I wasn't thinking smart. I was thinking the Keltharans came here to send a message. Figured I should send one back. So you destroyed their fleet? Yep. Found a shuttle, found the self-destruct codes in YTO's personal files. He'd given me access before he died. I just sort of decided that if I was going out, I was taking every single one of those murderous bastards with me. Kale limped to a console, tapping a few keys with his remaining fingers. A holographic display flickered to life, showing the station's final moments. A massive antimatter explosion, the Keltharan ships caught in the blast, a chain reaction. It was, Vral'tek had to admit, terribly beautiful. The surprising part was surviving. The shuttle's shields were barely functional, should have been vaporized in the blast. But I made it out. Limped back to the station wreckage. Found this hub was still pressurized, and just sort of sat down to wait. Figured someone would show up eventually. And you've been here for 14 hours. Give or take. Hard to keep track of time when you're in shock and possibly dying. Tiss stepped forward. You're definitely dying if we don't get you to medical immediately. Can you walk? I made it this far, didn't I? They helped Kade to his feet. He leaned heavily on John, who looked utterly terrified to be supporting someone who casually described killing thousands of hostiles. As they made their way back through the corridors, Vral'tek found himself viewing the carnage with new eyes. This wasn't a battle. This was what happened when you pushed a human past every psychological breaking point and then gave them weapons. They reached the airlock 20 minutes later. Kade was fading fast, the adrenaline finally wearing off, shock setting in. By the time they got him onto the morning's edge, he was unconscious. Tillis and her team rushed him to medical, already shouting orders about blood transfusions and surgical prep. BRT stood on his bridge, watching through the view screen as his crew catalogued the dead. 87 station personnel, 3,216 Keltharans, 32 capital ships destroyed, 1 human survivor. Sir, Krill said quietly, what do we tell command? Vral'tek pondered the implications. What would happen when word spread that a single human marine had decimated an entire Keltharan assault fleet out of sheer spite and determination? We tell them exactly what happened, he said finally. And then we recommend that the Keltharans be very, very careful about attacking human positions in the future. 3 weeks later, Vral'tek stood in a briefing room at Alliance Command, facing a panel of admirals from 6 different species. He had delivered his report, shown the footage, presented the evidence. They had sat in stunned silence for approximately 10 minutes. Finally, Admiral Caress, a venerable Corrin adorned with more military decorations than Vral'tek had ever seen on one person, spoke. And Corporal Mercer's current status? Recovering. Medical says he'll make a full physical recovery. Psychologically, well, they're still evaluating him. I imagine they are, Caress said dryly.
Commander, in your professional opinion, was Corporal Mercer's account accurate?
The physical evidence supports everything he said. The tactical logs, what we could recover, match his timeline. And sir, I saw the bodies. What he did was frankly impossible by any reasonable standard, but he did it anyway. Another admiral, a Vexian named Thress, leaned forward.
The Keltharans are demanding an explanation. They're calling this a war crime, using antimatter weapons against military vessels.
With respect, Admiral, the Kelthars attacked a civilian-supported military outpost with overwhelming force. They killed 86 personnel.
Corporal Mercer defended himself and the station using available resources.
If that's a war crime, then the killer committed 86 counts of murder first. Caress's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. Agreed. The Keltharan have been informed that their assault on Havlock Station was unprovoked and violated 3 separate treaties. They've also been informed that humanity considers this matter closed. What about Corporal Mercer? Vral'tek asked. He's being awarded the Alliance Star for valor beyond the call of duty. Also, a medical discharge, full honors, and enough therapy sessions to keep a psychological staff busy for a year. Vral'tek nodded. He earned it. Indeed, Commander. One more question. You've worked with humans before. In your opinion, is Corporal Mercer exceptional, or is this standard for his species when threatened? Vral'tek reflected on everything he had learned about humans over the years. Their peculiar biology, their strange psychology, their absolute refusal to accept impossible odds as an actual limitation. Sir, I think Corporal Mercer was exceptional in his execution. But his response, his refusal to give up, his willingness to keep fighting even when all hope was lost, that's not unique. That's just human. Caress sat back in his chair. Terrifying. Yes, sir. Absolutely terrifying. 6 months later, Vral'tek received a message. It was from Katie, now fully recovered and reportedly working as a tactical instructor at the Human Military Academy. The message was brief. Hey, Commander, thanks for the rescue. Also, tell your medical officer she gives terrible advice about taking it easy. I'm fine. The nightmares barely happen anymore. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that the Alliance has asked me to develop a new training program. Something about worst-case scenario survival tactics. Figure I'm qualified. Hope you're doing well. Don't let anyone tell you that showing up late to a fight means you miss the important part. Occasionally, the crucial aspect involves tidying up the aftermath. K for Vral'tek perused the message thrice before archiving it and resuming his tasks. Yet he never erased Lock Station from his memory, nor the insight it provided into humanity's potential for aggression when adequately incited. The Keltharan, for their part, abruptly developed a keen interest in diplomatic resolutions for their territorial conflicts with human domains. It's curious how things unfolded. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the cosmos, within a human military academy, a cyclopic instructor, characterized by a limp and 3 missing digits on one hand, instilled in nascent soldiers the essence of perseverance. He lectured on confronting insurmountable odds and embodying the ultimate survivor. Occasionally, on rare instances, the sole survivor was the exact requirement.